Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, I hope you're curled up and all the groceries are in the cabinets and in the refrigerator and you're hunkered down because it is going to be a weekend of storms. Welcome, everybody. America at Night. McGraw Milhaven here. Thanks for joining us on a Friday night. Coming up in hour number 2, we're going to check in with our dear old friend Matt Wolfe from CBS Entertainment, talk a little Oscar nominations and movies and TV shows and all that type of stuff with him. Also, in hour number 2, we're going to check in with Theo Lewis Clark, Hollywood executive for a day. Theo shut us out last week. We got to try and mend our winning ways here next hour in hour number 2. And then, of course, hour number 3 is open phones for everybody. Check in and see how the weather is in your neck of the woods. This first hour, though, with the NFL playoffs down to the final 2, the AFC-NFC championship this weekend, and then, of course, the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. There's going to be a lot of gambling and a lot of betting, and boy, has gambling and betting changed over the last couple of years, right? Used to be everybody would place a bet on the Super Bowl, and everybody would have a square from the local bar, and maybe you'd be in a pool, but gambling has exploded now that it is legal in 30-some-odd states, and what they're finding out is really, really troubling. And Danny Funt, a journalist, has written a brand new book called Everybody Loses, The Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. Danny Funt, welcome to America at Night.
Good evening, McGraw. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. Let's start with the obvious or the simplistic, and that is with this explosion of sports gambling. The people who might look down on this book or think, oh, my goodness, there are these guys talking about gambling again. The argument, Danny, is that, hey, they were already gambling. We already had Vegas had a sports book, and every town had a bookie, and every college campus had a bookie. And if you wanted to lay a bet down, you could certainly lay a bet down. So how is this any different now that we're just doing it legally from our phones?
It's gone from something that, as you were saying, if you were determined enough, absolutely, you could find someone who would take your bet. Whether they would pay you and whether they would chase you around town if you owed them money is a different story. But yeah, there's always been betting on sports. Basically, since there were professional sports in America, people have found a way to gamble. The difference is how easy it is, and that can't be understated. The idea that with a couple taps on your phone in most of the country, you can place a bet 24/7. You can bet on thousands of different outcomes within a game besides simply who's going to win or lose. And the evidence is clear that this is a whole new ball game when you make it that simple. $150 billion are now wagered every year across the country. And I talked to a lot of experts who do their best to study the black market. Obviously, we can't know exactly how much is wagered under the table, but there's simply no way. Not only was it that much money, it was this many people, millions of Americans who now consider gambling sort of the default way of engaging with sports. So a lot has changed, and there are a lot of signs of that besides just those staggering dollar figures I just mentioned.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is shocking that people kind of it's right under people's noses, and once you sort of talk about it and you explain it to them, they're like, "Wait a minute! Now that you mention it, yeah." But one of the things is there was the Pete Rose scandal. There was an NBA ref who got busted. Back in the '80s, there were a couple of sports point shaving in college. Right, you had the Black Sox scandal in 1919, right? I mean, that's so many years between the Pete Rose scandal, right? You had the CCNY scandals of the 30s and the 40s, but I mean, it was few and far between. But since legalized gambling, I mean, you have had NBA players, you've had college players, you've had baseball, high school or college baseball coaches. You have just recently, 20 some odd people were banned forever. The amount of athletes that are being swept up in this gambling scandals has exploded since the legalization of sports betting.
No doubt about it. And you might say, gosh, what could be more predictable than that? Except for the fact that the commissioners of professional sports assured the public that one of the upsides of legalization was that somehow it would enhance the integrity of sports because it would be easier for them to monitor better betting activity and therefore sniff out something suspicious. I get into detail in my book, speaking with insiders in sports and even the people tasked with doing that sort of investigating. It's not nearly so simple. In fact, it's much harder to catch someone placing an improper bet, and it's also much easier to fix a game. Let me quickly give you two examples. Last baseball season, two pitchers on the Cleveland Guardians, including Emmanuel Clase, one of the top closers in baseball and a well-paid all-star, were arrested for allegedly throwing balls intentionally and telling people to bet on a specific pitch. Hey, I'm going to spike a slider in front of home plate. You can be sure to bet a lot of money that that's going to be a ball, or something as simple as I'm going to throw an off-speed pitch. So nowadays you can bet how fast will the next pitch be. They said, hey, heads up, here comes a breaking ball. The idea that you could bet on these so-called micro bets and not only just bet on them, but bet a lot of money on them so that it was enticing to a highly paid professional athlete is an invention of the online betting era. This is not something you could do through the black market just a decade or so ago. And it's pretty intuitive why. How are you going to tell your bookie, hey, in the sixth inning, this guy is going to throw a ball to the second batter? It's just something you can only do through mobile betting or online betting. And now 95% of bets are placed online. The other example quickly that is just makes it so clear that these corruption scandals are a modern invention. A player on the Toronto Raptors a few years ago in the NBA, one of the most obscure players in the league, was arrested and ultimately convicted of removing himself from games with fake injuries, pretending something was wrong with his eye or he was sick, or making up reasons to get himself out of a game so that people who he had told to bet on his specific, how many points he'd score, how many rebounds he'd grab, his own stats would be sure that those bets would go under, that he wouldn't meet the number that the bookmakers had set. And to make matters worse, nowadays you can combine all those bets for the chance at winning an exorbitant amount of money. So in one specific example, I saw a betting slip that those conspirators had placed that stood to win more than $1 million on this player, Jonte Porter. And I told that to a veteran bookmaker in Las Vegas, a guy who's been, working behind the counter at some of the top sports books in Nevada for a long time. And he said it would have been ludicrous in his day to take a bet like that. You would never be on the hook for $1 million in the middle of the season for some obscure bench player, specifically because it's so easy to fix. And yet those sorts of bets are a huge moneymaker, the biggest moneymaker for operators like FanDuel and DraftKings at the head of the pack of sports books. And so my point is, not only is gambling in our faces and tempting athletes like never before, but they can get away with fixing a game in some of the most subtle ways imaginable.
And everybody who's looking at this says, you have to ban these bets, these prop bets, these sort of one-off bets, and they won't do it because there's so much money in it.
Yeah, and not only are those operators like FanDuel and DraftKings that I mentioned so protective because you're right, that's become their cash cow. For a lot of young people in particular, that's all they bet on. And you can understand the appeal of, to them, just sitting back and waiting to see who's going to win the game is boring. They'd rather be betting on all sorts of props, as they're called, in the meantime. Not only that, though, the leagues are totally, their business is totally entangled in that business. Besides these sponsorships, they sell live game data that makes it possible to offer those sorts of prop bets, specifically prop bets that are updating over the course of the game. That's a big part of how the leagues make money off legal gambling is through selling so-called official league data. So
Hold that
they're
thought.
going to,
Hold that thought.
yeah,
I want to hear more of that. Danny Funt, our
yes.
guest. The book is Everybody Loses: The Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. It is pretty scary once you start to scratch the surface. We'll come back and talk with him more. In a minute, though, let me tell you about these statements and the products. They have not been evaluated by the FDA, and these products are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure or prevent any disease or condition. Now, if you're like me, the holidays were a whole lot of fun. Heavy foods, delicious sweets, maybe a drink or two with some alcohol, but they can take a toll on your liver. That's why a new resolution for 2026 was to get healthy. Well, the best way to get healthy, Active Liver from New Nordic. Active Liver is available in easy-to-take tablets, delicious gummies, and it's an important part of your daily wellness routine to keep your body detoxed and feeling its best. Now, since I started taking Active Liver from New Nordic, I've noticed less digestive issues, better energy, I feel healthier, and less worn down. Take my advice and get a new year, a new you with Active Liver. Simple, delicious, daily detox. Active Liver is available at Amazon or newnordicusa.com. Pick up some today at your CVS, ShopRite, Meijer Grocery, and now Active Liver is available at Wegmans. New year, new you, new Nordic.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, the book is called Everybody Loses: The Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. Danny Funt is the author. The book just came out. It's getting a lot of attention and a lot of great buzz because of the in-depth nature of it. Danny, when last we left you, you were talking about how the leagues were in bed with the gambling sites, and you touched on something a lot of people don't know about and a lot of people aren't aware of. And not only do you see all the thousands and thousands of commercials, which is the millions of dollars that they pay for the advertising on television, but talk about the data side of this.
Yeah. So, with so many of these concerns, and I'll get into why the data side is so important and problematic, but to me, writing this book, it's easy for us as sports fans to say, hey, that could go south pretty fast when we're looking at different aspects of what's happening with sports gambling. The thing that really stuck with me is how people inside sports and inside these gambling operators, they themselves are concerned enough to speak with a reporter and often put their name behind their quote. So that to me is what, sounded alarm bells in my head. A lot of people don't realize that, as I was saying, the leagues, it was sort of explained to them that you can brand legalization as this effort to protect the integrity of your games. Like, now we'll be able to monitor all this betting. We'll know if someone like the referee you mentioned or a Pete Rose of the modern era is betting who shouldn't be, and we'll catch them. And at the same time, what they were learning in those conversations is that the data, that is all the live statistics from their games, they could convince states to mandate that these sports books pay the leagues and pay them quite handsomely to sell them that data. You might be thinking, gee, if someone, gets a hit in a baseball game, what's so precious about that? But the idea that it's being transmitted instantaneously, for one, is crucial to online betting. And number two, if a state says you got to pay for it, you got to pay for it. And the leagues were at the forefront of lobbying states so that these bills were passed in a way that was advantageous to the leagues and to the sports books. So just one last thing about this that's so important. The companies, and there are two of them in particular, one is called Genius and one is called Sport Radar, that are in charge of monitoring suspicious bets to catch match fixing and other corruption. Their main business isn't that integrity monitoring. It's transmitting the data from the leagues as a vendor to these sports books, powering As one person put it, they provide the infrastructure, the plumbing infrastructure for online sports betting. Now, what a conflict of interest if they ever caught something really damaging. Forget one of these bench players. If a major star were ever caught betting when they shouldn't be, would they hesitate to blow the whistle knowing that's going to potentially devastate their main business, the business of supplying data for these prop bets that, as we were just discussing, is a huge piece of the online business? Agents in the NBA I spoke with, even people in these data companies, at these integrity monitors say, the fox is in the henhouse. This is a profound conflict of interest that might make them sweep something really bad for sports and for gambling under the rug.
Danny Funt, our guest. We got to take a quick break. I got about a minute and a half left, then we're going to come back, talk more. The book is Everybody Loses, The Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. What I find so abhorrent and such a arbiter of what's going on is when you're watching a college football game or a college basketball game, and the NCAA takes out a commercial and says, if you lose, please don't blame the student athlete. The student athletes are getting harassed and bullies and death threats because they're not having a good game and someone's losing their mortgage on some poor kid who misses a free throw at the end of the game.
I led off my book with that very issue because it's distinctly a much bigger problem now that everyone's betting compared to a decade ago when this was happening on the black market. And B, because as you were touching on, it's so out of hand and so horrifying. Not only harassment on a game-by-game basis because enraged gamblers are determined to bully someone and abuse them for costing them a bet, but a lot worse than that. Athletes stalked at their hotel or at their home, death threats, constant death threats. And it's all got people in sports saying it's only a matter of time before some, furious gambler actually tries to follow through on a death threat and kill someone. That's a real issue.
Danny Funt, hold that thought. Lots more to get to. If you have a question or a comment, you can text us, 844-2McGraw, 844-262-4729. A question for Danny, you can certainly text us. We're back with more. His book, Everybody Loses, The Tumultuous Ride of American Sports Gambling. America at Night. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Danny Funt is our guest. He's a journalist, and he did the legwork on what is a riveting account of gambling that's going on in America and American sports. The book is called Everybody Loses, The Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. From the America at Night text line, Dan in Wisconsin wants to ask you a question. Danny, the question is, my 16-year-old son drained his bank account when we found out that he was gambling on these sports sites. What's the regulation on underage gamblers? Great question, Danny. I guess it's supposed to be over 18 or over 21, but how do they do it, and how bad is the underage drinking or underage gambling issue?
Yeah, I understand the slip there because what parents used to have to worry about keeping booze and other things from their kids. Now gambling is at the top of that list because it's gotten so out of hand with kids, not definitely in college, but high school, middle school. I've even heard of elementary school students who've developed gambling problems. First of all, I'm so sad to hear about the listener's child. I wish that was more rare. Yeah, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Half of the calls to our problem hotline nowadays are from concerned parents who are so worried about the gambling that they see their kids suddenly obsessed with. As for, what can this operators be doing to vet to make sure that you're of age? Technically, when you sign up, you've got to give your driver's license, your social security number, other ways of confirming that you're a real person, first of all, and then a person who's of age. As you said, 21 and up in most states, 18 and up in a handful of others. But there's so many easy ways around that. For one, you might have an older sibling or an older friend or an older anyone who will happily take your bets. Um, there are ways of fooling around with that if you're tech savvy and can, use ways of tricking the sports book to think you're someone else. It should be a lot harder. But if you're betting from your phone, again, if you had to walk up to a counter to place a bet like you used to, maybe it would be harder to get away with betting underage. Now, when you're doing it, through the behind a screen, it's a lot easier, as we're seeing.
Yeah. Let's talk about the gambling sites, because you get bombarded with the bet $5, get 300 points, get $300 to bet for free. That's nothing more than a drug dealer, right, offering your kid up free drugs to get them hooked on gambling, right?
Yeah, there's a guy named Billy Walters who, by credible news outlets, has been called one of the winningest bettors of this era. He's a professional sports gambler. He made that very analogy that just like tobacco companies used to give out free cigarettes, to get people going, that's exactly what sports books are doing. As someone at FanDuel told me, it's the lifeblood of this industry is freebies, extremely enticing promotions, especially when a state, I know Missouri just legalized in December. When a state goes live and there's such a competition among these companies for market share and for securing new customers, it's incredible the amount of free money they're willing to give away. I was living in New York when New York legalized in 2022. You could pocket thousands of dollars just by signing up for a half dozen sports books. The catch, of course, is that they're only willing to give you that much money because they know quite well that you're going to lose that and then some in a short amount of time. It's the lifetime value of customers in their eyes can be, several $1,000s on average. So, yeah. And when we talk about what could be done to regulate the industry, other countries have realized that giving out these freebies is a bad idea. It gives people a false sensation of winning, and then they're chasing that feeling, going forward. Also, just quickly, one other aspect of that that's so deceptive about how these companies introduce themselves to customers is often you'll hear expressions like, here's a risk-free bet, or here's a no-sweat bet. And sometimes you can bet a no-sweat bet up to $1,000. And I think, it's pretty straightforward. You would think that no sweat means I don't have a chance I'm not going to be sweating my bet. I don't have a chance of losing that money. And if you read the fine print, it's not so simple. You definitely have a chance of losing everything you put up at stake in a no sweat or risk-free bet. And I spoke with a higher up at FanDuel, former, high-ranking official at FanDuel, and he used a word that I don't think we can say on air to describe that. But the point was that's not a decent way of treating your customers, to dangle this prize in front of them. That's you'd have to read the fine print to know it's not nearly so generous.
Everybody Loses is the book, The Tumultuous Ride of American, the Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. Danny Funt, our guest. Danny, I've heard stories in Vegas. They have VIP gamblers, and they're taken care of, and they get steak dinners, and they get the suites, and they get the show tickets and everything else. I've heard that they have that similar with these gambling sites, but for the gambler who's out of money, they just keep giving them more money or just giving them enough rope and just basically bleed them dry. Do you hear stories like that?
all the time. In fact, I had to devote a whole chapter of that to my book because I think, for one, the level of perks and freebies and incredible experiences that they give these so-called VIP customers would absolutely blow you away. And also because, as you were saying, they give them to ultra rich people who can afford to lose that much money and ordinary people who just have problems. And they develop the problems in part because they're hooked not just on the betting, but on all those incredible perks. That's central to the VIP business. You were mentioning McGraw, at a casino, they'll give you a free steak dinner, they'll give you a suite, they'll maybe even fly you in first class. Someone very high up at one of these sports books laughed at that just because the level of VIP customer service in the online sports betting era is, a whole different universe of opportunity. Part of that is because they partner with professional sports teams. Traditionally you didn't have casinos, you definitely didn't have offshore sports books that were the official partner of all your favorite teams. And because of that, they can give you things like these VIPs can throw out the first pitch at a Major League Baseball game. Their kids can take batting practice on the field. They can play pickup basketball in an NBA court. They can give the drivers start your engine starting command in a NASCAR race. I could spend this whole hour listing some of the most just staggering, who could believe it perks that I've heard from these companies that they give those customers. But it's a dangerous road to go down because essentially you're egging them on and saying, we love that you're betting tens of thousands of dollars a week, if not much, much more than that. And as soon as you reconsider, as soon as you pull back, all of those perks are gone. You're going to be ghosted by the sports book.
So they're your best friend until you run out of money, and then they won't return to your phone call.
Friend is the opportune word. I literally have had VIP hosts say the goal is to make you think the guy who's catering to you is your friend, partly because you'll listen to him when he says, hey, don't you want to be betting more? Can I give you a bonus so that you keep betting? Or, can I sit with you courtside at a game hoping you'll keep on betting? But also because if you're ever tempted to leave, not only are you going to lose those perks, you're going to lose a friend. The best example of this is someone at FanDuel who worked in this VIP side of the business said one of their colleagues caught wind that a VIP customer's dog had passed away, and they sent them a condolence basket that included a blanket with a picture of the dog printed on the blanket. Can you imagine, your bookie essentially sending you something so intimate? And once again, the point is that if they do something that endearing, you're going to make it up to them by continuing to bet at just a mind-blowing rate. And, even people who seem wealthy, a lot of them can't sustain betting tens of thousands of bucks a game. That's a road toward getting in over your head.
Yeah, Everybody Loses is the name of the book. I've talked to a couple of gamblers who have been through the program, and they try and explain it like this, that if you're a gambler and you're addicted, and this is even so hard to fathom, but they don't even care if they win. They just want the dopamine hit of the chase. Once they win, and if they win, they're happy because all that means is they have more money to gamble the next game.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a psychologist, but I've tried to get up to speed a little bit on what exactly motivates people to gamble. It's certainly for a lot of people winning money, but you hit the nail on the head. The rush that we get from dopamine when we bet, it's not the victory, it's the pursuit, it's the hunt. That's what activates that incredible feeling that can get so addictive. And, we were talking earlier about parlays, this idea of stacking bets together. That's the majority of how sportsbooks make their money is through, hey, I'm going to bet $10. And if all five, let's say, of the things I bet on are successful, I'll win $100. If you hit four legs of your parlay, you're going to have such an intense dopamine experience because you're thinking, my hunt, I just missed catching my prey. This hunt was so exhilarating. And the statistics that make it so effective for the sports books is, for one, Going 4 out of 5 on a parlay feels like you just missed. It's 5 times more likely than going 5 out of 5. Number two, the house edge on those parlays is sometimes 6 times bigger than for a traditional bet. They're raking in a fortune off these parlays. So it's such an intense dopamine experience. And it's all the more intense now online when you're betting, let's say, every 3 minutes instead of every 3 hours. If all you're doing is saying, I'm going to bet and sit back and watch the game, sportsbooks are doing everything they can to make betting a nonstop experience. You're glued to your phone, hammering away, placing bets as you're watching a game, and that's all the more dangerous. And it's pretty intuitive why.
Danny Funt, Everybody Loses is the book, The Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. So, any talk of reining this in? Anybody talking about the dangerous game we're playing? Anybody in Congress? Any states? I mean, any regulation you see coming down anytime soon?
Well, I'll start by saying for my book, I was so grateful that I spoke with dozens of people in the industry. And as your listeners will find if they read the book, a lot of people at these companies are saying things are out of control. Our companies have proven that we can't be trusted to self-police. Someone needs to impose guardrails. Someone needs to make sure there are legitimate consumer protections. These are people who work at sportsbooks saying that. Now, whether politicians will act on those growing sorts of concerns, it seems there is some momentum. Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio, we were talking about prop bets, has said prop bets are a failed experiment. They're way too easy to fix. States, Ohio included, ought to ban prop bets. A member of Congress recently said the same. The NCAA thinks you shouldn't be allowed to bet on individual player performance. That's an uphill battle because, again, that's such a important part of why sportsbooks can be so profitable. And then there's a whole host of other consumer protections that some members of Congress are pushing for. They're facing enormous resistance, unsurprisingly, from the industry because it cuts at the heart of their business, whether that's restrictions on advertising, on these freebie promotions that are used to seduce new customers, on the way that even the types of bets you're offered and the responsibility of sportsbooks to make sure people aren't betting way over their heads. All of these things, by the way, have been enacted belatedly, but enacted in Europe and other parts of the world where they're a bit ahead of us at legalizing online betting and realized addiction rates are surging, corruption is rife in sports, and the initial wave of regulations weren't cutting it. So maybe that'll happen here.
Is it true that once a state accepts gambling, shortly thereafter, 6, 8 months, a year and a half, bankruptcies have gone through the roof?
Yeah, there's very credible studies from university researchers showing, as you said, bankruptcies go up, credit scores go down, household savings go down. About 1 in 5 college students admit to dipping into their tuition funds to pay for their betting. Even, and I hate to even bring this up, but domestic violence goes up in a state with legal betting. The violent rage that people can get in if the home team loses has been documented to be demonstrably worse in a state with legal betting versus a state that continues to outlaw it. So all of that, I think, is the tip of the iceberg. There's even, people would say, a deliberate effort to understudy the consequences of betting. There's so much resistance to devoting any percentage of the tax revenue this is generating to get a better grasp of just how many people are betting and also how many of them have gambling problems. And the suspicion is the industry knows they'd face a lot more scrutiny if we had a clear picture of the damage that all this is doing.
Danny Funt, it has been an interesting hour, very eye-opening, and you get a lot of credit for doing the legwork and exposing a lot of this, including the people inside the industry who are talking to you and putting their name behind their quotes. as you said, that says quite a bit about the issue of widespread gambling, all from your phone. The book is Everybody Loses, The Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. Danny Funt, great job. Congratulations on the book. Good luck on your tour. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you, McGraw. Have a good night.
You got it. Danny Funt, Everybody Loses is the book. America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, here's a little postscript for you. About 8 days ago, U.S. prosecutors charged 26 people in an alleged gambling scheme. The scheme involved 39 players, 17 NCAA men's basketball teams, fixing 29 games, and 2 Chinese Basketball Association games. The scheme was massive. It had enveloped the college basketball world, including the NBA and the New York Mafia. If you're betting on Chinese basketball games on your phone, it's safe to say you might have a gambling problem. It's just every couple weeks, there's another story of somebody who is walking down the wrong path when it comes to gambling. And I'm afraid something's going to happen where there's going to cross a line. It's going to be a terrible, terrible story. Massive gambling, or some fan losing his mind because he lost his mortgage and something terrible happened. It's inevitable, it seems like. All right, stay right there. That's going to do it for hour number 1. Stay right there, because Matt Wolfe from CBS News is going to talk about the Oscar nominations. They came out this week, and Theo Lewis-Clark is going to play Hollywood exec for a day. We're going to try and redeem ourselves from last week. It was an embarrassing performance by the team. Our executive director tonight is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. And this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Friday night. Hopefully you're got your heater cranked up, because it is cold outside. But it's nice and toasty inside, and hopefully all the groceries are put away, and late night conversation and enjoying a little conversation. We're talking a little movies this hour. Next hour, or I should say second half of this hour, we're going to check in with Theo Lewis-Clark, Hollywood exec for a day, and then open phones. But this hour, first half, we're going to check in with a dear old friend who is suffering the fate as I am, living this life as a Jets fan. So we have a personal connection. Of course, I'm talking about Matt Wolfe of CBS News. Matt, welcome back to America at Night.
Wait a minute, you mean the Jets aren't in the playoffs this weekend? Come on, dude. What are you talking about?
No, and I'm really tired of rooting for their draft place, right? I keep rooting against the Jets, or I keep rooting for them to lose, and somebody says, "You're a weird Jet fan." I'm like, well, by October, you end up rooting for them to lose so they get a better draft spot.
And then what always happens? The Patriots just keep coming back.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
It's just like, can we not again? And here we are again for the first time in 3 years now, I think it is. I can't keep track anymore. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done.
Well, I've been to 2 Super Bowls, and both Super Bowls have been the Patriots winning on a last-second field goal, and then that game where they beat the Seahawks in that last-second interception. So I don't want to go to another Super Bowl. I don't have fun going to Super Bowls. It's just not fun.
I hear you, brother. It's torture. It's torture.
I hear you. All right, so let's talk Oscars because Oscar nominations are out, and I know this is your Christmas morning because you guys love this type of stuff. Sinners is the big one, I guess, and we can get to that. But I thought it was interesting that something's changing. A lot of the movies that were Oscar nominations would come out towards the end of the year, but Sinners came out in the middle of the summer. F1 came out in the middle of the summer. So it seems like some movies are getting a look that don't necessarily come out at the end of the year.
Right, but it's sort of part of the ever-changing evolution of film right now, right? And this is why I always say with the Oscars, especially these days, it's not easy to predict. Like everyone was so surprised that F1 got nominated for Best Picture, but you know what? I'm not surprised at all because if you've seen it, and it's an awesome movie if you haven't seen it, it's a big, glorious, entertaining movie. It's got Brad Pitt. It's got great cinematography. It's thrilling. It's got everything that the old school Academy voters love. I mean, one of the voters was quoted as saying, "I love this blanking movie." Fill in the blanks there, and that's the sort of thing that the Academy thrives on. Now, when you look at something like Sinners, here's something that started as kind of a slow burn when it first came out. I mean, Ryan Coogler is a fantastic director, but it took its time building, and it built off a lot of word of mouth. You've got to see this. You've got to see this. And Ryan Coogler has an extremely, extremely huge following with the younger voters in the Academy body. So when you look at the dichotomy of things going on here, it doesn't really surprise me from that perspective. But what did kind of surprise me is Wicked for Good just totally blanked. Nothing. Zero. Big nothing. Not even a director for John M. Chu, which was kind of surprising. I thought that they would at least get that single category locked down in some fashion, but no go.
I know a lot of people are surprised, but it's kind of like the same movie last year. I get it's part two, but how many times can you take a bite of the same apple?
Well, I thought about this for a little while. Okay, why didn't it work with the Academy? See, here's the thing. Sequels are tough sometimes. Sure, you can say, well, The Godfather 2 did great with the Academy Awards, and even look at Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King back in 2004. It was like every 5 minutes Peter Jackson was up there getting an Oscar. But, sequels can be tough, and this was just like the play. The second act in Wicked is a very dark story. There's no thrilling, musical numbers or anything. And, we need to be honest. The reviews for Wicked for Good weren't as good as the first part, too. So all that kind of plays into it. So part of me was surprised, but I guess another part of me was like, this is what the pulse is right now for this.
Matt Wolfe with CBS News checking in on the Oscars. What movie is Sentimental Value? What's that one?
Sentimental Value, this is one that's coming from behind, so to speak, and it's got Stellan Skarsgård, who won the Best Supporting Actor a couple of weeks ago at the Golden Globes for this. And Stellan Skarsgård, he is beloved by the Academy voting body. I mean, this guy has been in the movies since the 80s, since The Hunt for Red October. He played the other Russian submarine captain that was in pursuit of Sean Connery, you might remember, from way back when. And he's been in a bunch of Marvel movies and everything. And Sentimental Value, well, it sort of holds true to the Academy that they like these sentimental movies. This is about a psychiatrist who has left his family, and now he's coming back trying to repair things. And it's one of those big emotional movies that's all of a sudden gained a lot of groundswell. And I got to tell you, Stellan Skarsgård right now, he's jumped ahead, I think, right now in the likelihood of him getting this. I would love to see Jacob Elordi from Frankenstein. Have you seen Frankenstein, by the way?
I have not seen Frankenstein, no.
You absolutely must see Frankenstein, if not for just Jacob Elordi's performance as the creature. Now, he should win it, but I have a feeling that Stellan Skarsgård is just going to get that beloved Academy vote sort of thing going for him now.
All right, so explain to me one battle after another. I tried to watch it. I really gave it a good shot. And 15 minutes, I saw a lot of things blowing up and a lot of weird sex scenes. I didn't get it, and I turned it off.
Well, Tiana Taylor also riding that wave right now. She's hosting Saturday Night Live tomorrow night. See, One Battle After Another is not everybody's bag. It's a revolutionary dark comedy, without getting too much into it, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Again, one of these types in Hollywood that is absolutely beloved for all of his films and all of his works. But the conversation up until this past Thursday has been about one battle after another, one battle for this category, that category, and everything. And Sinners, people are just saying, just wait, just wait, just wait. And sure enough, Sinners comes out. It is an absolute beast with 16 nominations. So now the conversation is a little bit more about Sinners. Now, will Sinners come in and win every single category, much like Lord of the Rings did all those years ago, The Return of the King? Not so sure, but it's got a good chance now of director, I think, for Ryan Coogler. But I still get weird about the old school Academy maybe voting in Paul Thomas Anderson again.
I think that movie should be called One Sex Scene After Another. It didn't, somebody said to me, stick with it. After a half hour, plot starts to sort of develop, but I couldn't get past it.
And they're absolutely right. The first 40 minutes of this movie, I'm just like, wait a minute, Sean Penn, what are you doing, bro? What's going on here? You know what I mean? And it's got a great performance, too, in Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, he is one of the greatest actors of our time. I think he is definitely one of those Jimmy Stewart types who can play so many different roles in so many different places. And, you know, does he have a shot, too, at winning Best Actor? Of course he does. He's Leo. But the movie, for a lot of people, it's tough to wrap their heads around, whereas Sinners is one of the most original screenplays that I've ever seen. Gee, let's see, Ryan Coogler, what are we going to do? We're going to take a blues-infused world set after World War I in Jim Crow South and put in vampires in there. What do you think's going to happen? Well, I don't know, but it's certainly going to be original, and it's really, really good. You should really, if there's one movie you want to watch this weekend with all this snow and sleet and God knows and plague of locusts coming in and what else, watch Sinners this weekend and get back to me and let me know what you think.
Well, I will say this. I think Michael B. Jordan, if all the talk about Leo is wonderful, I think Michael B. Jordan, from when he burst on the scene in The Wire, everything he's done has been fantastic. I think he's one of the best actors going.
Yeah, and even going back to Fruitvale Station when he first worked with Ryan Coogler, that guy was just, he's a knockout. And would I love to see him win Best Actor? Of course, but we got to talk about Timothée Chalamet. We have to, you know, he is riding the wave right now for Marty Supreme after getting the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a musical or comedy. And the Critics' Choice Awards before that, he won in that category too. He's now the youngest actor ever to be nominated the most times in that category. Last year for A Complete Unknown, he got nominated for that as Bob Dylan, and then Call Me By Your Name. The dude is only 30. What were we doing at 30, man? Come on.
I loved him. I loved him as Bob Dylan, but I also love Bob Dylan, and I loved that movie. I think Bob Dylan is just such a fascinating character, and I thought he pulled it off. I mean, everyone's got an opinion, but again, Marty Supreme. It's a movie about a 1950s ping pong champion. Am I missing something?
We call it. Let's make it sexy. Sorry. Tennis table, shall we?
Sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, but
I don't get it.
Again, it's one of these movies, and it's a pretty fun, very kinetic movie to watch. I mean, this is Timothée Chalamet's wheelhouse, right? He goes from the moodiness of something like Bob Dylan, right, and all the different, you know, phases of his existence, and then you come out with this way left of center movie like this, and then this year he's got the final Dune movie coming out in Dune Part 3. You never know. We might see him up again for Best Actor as Paul Atreides in this final movie, depending on how everything, you know, turns around. But that's the nature of Timothée Chalamet. He goes for these roles that are kind of unexpected. I'm like, Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan, but from the moment that trailer dropped, sold.
Yeah. All right. When are the Oscars?
Oscars are going to be March 15th on ABC.
And who's going to be hosting? Do we know?
It's still going to be Conan O'Brien.
Oh, is it real? It's sort of, you can't win for losing hosting the Oscars because you get the first 10 minutes, and then after that, you're just sort of handing it off to everybody else.
You but it was interesting. There was some speculation as to whether or not, what's going to be happening with Conan O'Brien because of everything that's pending now with the Rob Reiner investigation.
Yeah.
Don't forget, everybody was at his big party, in the days before all of that grisly stuff happened. So there was some speculation as to whether or not, Conan maybe was saying, I might skip the Oscars this year, but, so far he's online to still host come March 15th.
Yeah, isn't that later? It was earlier. It was later. What are they doing with that? Is that?
It feels a little later this year, doesn't it? I mean, not that ABC is going whatever, because the Oscars is leaving the ABC fold come 2029 when everything shifts over to YouTube, which is going to be a totally different conversation between you and I. I think actually we might have touched base on this a couple of weeks back when everything was going on, but that's wild in itself, and it's just going to be interesting, I think, this year because everybody keeps asking me, well, where are the big movies? Where is The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King? Where's the Forrest Gumps? Where's those big, big ballsy movies that are out there? That's just not the way it is, and there's so many things that you can examine about that. It's just the way Hollywood is right now. It's because of streaming creeping in, and all of these different conversations. But look, art is very subjective, right? What's one person's sinners is another one battle after another. So there's something out there for everybody still.
And you got to, I'm sorry. You got to throw in the writer's strike. I mean, aren't we still seeing the effects of some of that writer's strike too?
You still are seeing some of the effects there too, and everything. Don't forget, Hollywood was on a big pause for a while. A double strike, the actor strike, writer strike. I mean, and then coming out of the pandemic, nothing has been quite the same in that realm since 2019. You're not going to see these mega blockbusters like, let's say, Avengers Endgame, but it's getting pretty close. I mean, look at K-pop Demon Hunters, also up for Best Animated Movie, right? I mean, who'd have thought that a movie that is literally about K-pop stars hunting demons in anime form, what a huge year for anime, too. And it's Netflix's most viewed program ever. And they put it in theaters for a weekend, and it made like $56 million. Like, huh? But again, that's the pendulum. That's the way things swing, and that's what studios are gravitating toward.
CBS News, all-around great guy. What else are you doing, Matt Wolfe? What's that international thing over in Europe you're doing?
That is a trend line, and that's going pretty well. Talking everything going on here in the States and international stuff with entertainment, and that's going as well as possibly can. We're having fun with it. I mean, it's just like spread the virus, spread the word. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say virus these days. We're kind of not over that whole thing yet. But
there you go.
And here we are in New York waiting for the snow, too.
God love you. Matt Wolfe, you're a good friend. Thanks for checking in. You're a breath of fresh air. We love chatting with you. Be safe, hunker down, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, man.
We'll talk to you soon, brother. Go Seahawks.
There you go. Matt Wolfe, who is one of the good ones, and with CBS News and a great entertainment insider. So we love having him on the show. It's America at Night. Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
You look back at some of the Best Picture Oscar winners over the last couple of years. I mean, they win the Oscars for Best Picture, and then you never hear of them again. Last year's winner, Anora. Is anybody sitting down on a Saturday afternoon and Anora showing up on TNT? Oppenheimer, good movie. Never seen it since. I haven't seen it anywhere. Doesn't show up on HBO. Doesn't show up on Hulu. Nothing. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Never seen again. Coda. That was a great movie. I loved Coda. But again, you don't see, I mean, you've got to hunt it out. You got to go see it. If you haven't seen Coda, it is one of the most heartfelt, beautiful, family, endearing movie you'll ever see. Coda's wonderful. Nomadland. I just don't see it. Parasite. Green Book. Shape of Water. Moonlight. Yeah, no one you never see Birdman, 2014, Best Picture, never to be heard from again. It's like you win the Oscar for Best Picture, and then they put it in a box, and you never see it again. Stay right there. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have Theo Lewis Clark, Hollywood exec for a day. He's going to have 3 movies. 2 of them are going to be real movies that have been greenlit by real Hollywood producers. One of them is fake. We're going to have to figure out which one's real and which one's fake. He stumped us last week. We'll see if we get him back this week. Theo Lewis Clark, Hollywood exec for a day. Stay right there. Back in a moment.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, let's get right to it. It's Theo Lewis Clark, and he, of course, is our entertainment guru, and he is playing Hollywood exec for a day. He, of course, plays the game like this. He, of course, is the host or the panelist. He has 3 vehicles. Theo Lewis Clark, welcome back to America at Night. You there?
Oh, absolutely. How you doing, gentlemen?
All right, good to have you. All right, so here are the way they're. Alex, are you there?
I am. I'm here. I'm ready to go.
Alex and Richard Good, you're ready to roll?
I'm here.
All right. Here's the deal. So Theo Lewis Clark joins us every Friday at about this time, and he has 3 vehicles, 2 of which are real movies that have been greenlit by real Hollywood executives that have been real movies. One of them has never been made. No one's ever signed off on it, and has come from the creative mind of Theo Lewis Clark. We have to determine which is the real one and which are the fake ones. Without further ado, Theo Lewis Clark, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. So let's get underway. Is it number 1, a renowned bat specialist gets bitten by a bat on his honeymoon and gradually starts to get nightmares and physical changes? And his wife tries to help him, but the weight of it puts such a strain on the marriage, and it doesn't help that the local sheriff takes a romantic interest in her at the same time. Or is it number 2, she's a spoiled teenager who runs away from home because she didn't get her special high-heel shoes for Christmas. Now, through her journey, her life descends into extreme crime. In fact, she becomes a career crime fashion model who commits murders for the sake of beauty. Or is it number 3, an elderly woman discovers a magical remote control between the couch cushions at the nursing home. It brings in an old sweater that she was wearing to life. She puts it on, and every time she puts it on, she gives someone a hug, and their dreams come true. All righty. Is it the renowned bat specialist who gets bitten by the bat, love triangle with the sheriff? Or is it the spoiled teenager, didn't get her high heels, she runs away from home and becomes just a crazy crime fashion spree girl, killing in the name of beauty? Or is it the elderly woman who finds the magical remote control that turns her sweater, makes sure every time she gives someone a hug, their life, all their life's dreams come true? What say you?
All right. Richard Good, you'll be first up tonight. What do you think?
It's his turn to go first.
I'm going to go with the bat. I feel like the bat story is a little out there, so I'm going to say that's the fake one.
The bat with the honeymoon and the wife.
Kind of throwing me off.
The wife who has a romantic interlude with the sheriff who's trying to track down the crazy bats on their honeymoon.
That's the one.
He says throwing them off. That was great. I like that line.
Alex, which one's the real one? Which one's the fake one?
I think I'm going to agree with Richard here and say the bat one. It sounds too. That feels like he needs to be turning into a bat or something. Like the fact that he just got bit by a bat, I don't think got enough oomph to it. So I'm thinking that's the bat one as well.
Okay, well, the both of you are wrong. The bat one is bat crazy, which means that it's guaranteed to be a Hollywood movie because some idiot signed off on that one. I'm going to say number 2. The spoiled teen with the high heels, crime spree for fashion sense. That seems a little too far-fetched. It seems that it's got a little Theo Lewis Clark flair to it. So I'm going to say number 2 is the fake one.
Outstanding. So we think Richard and also Alex go with number 1, correct?
That is correct.
They say the renowned bat specialist gets bitten by a bat on his honeymoon and gradually starts to get nightmares and physical changes. See there, Alex? And his wife tries to help him, but the weight of it puts a strain on the marriage, doesn't help that local sheriff, takes a romantic interest in her at the same time. Gentlemen, you both are wrong. That's a movie, 1974. It's called The Bat People. Yes, a real movie. So either I stumped you guys twice in a row.
Hold on a second. Who's in the movie The Bat People?
Nobody you ever know.
The Bat People.
And it's probably it's so look it up, Google it. These are real films when I tell you.
Oh no, yeah. Arthur Space, Paul Carr, Michael Pataki, Marion McAndrew, Stuart Moss, 1974. After the sun has set and the night wind has died, comes the hour of the Bat People.
Yeah, baby.
All right.
You guys wouldn't get that. Way to go, Richard. Okay, so either McGraw's back to his winning ways or Theo Lewis Clark is stumping you guys twice in a row, right? And by the way,
correct.
Go to www.theolewisclarkradio.com with your ideas. Okay, McGraw, you said the spoiled teenager runs away from home because she didn't get her special high heels for Christmas. Through her journey, she becomes commits murders and becomes this crime fashion girl. That's also 1974. It's called Female Trouble, a dark comedy crime satire, which means Theo Lewis Clark is the man. 2 weeks in a row, an elderly woman discovers a magical remote control between the couch cushions at the nursing home, brings an old sweater to life. She puts it on. Every time she puts it on, she gives him a hug, and the dreams come true. That's in Theo's world, and it's called Sweater Magic.
Yeah.
Sweater Magic.
Sweater Magic. All right. Wait, what's the spoiled teen movie? What's that one called?
Female Trouble, 1974.
Female Trouble.
Female. Yeah, dark comedy crime satire, stars no one we know. And it's a couple of poignant things in entertainment too. HBO Max got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's the streaming debut of what's the name of it? The Smashing Machine. It's about a real life MMA guy called Mark Kerr. I love based on the true story films. So HBO Max has got the streaming debut of that. It did pretty good at the box office. And then in theaters new this weekend, everybody's talking about this one. Chris Pratt's new one, Mercy. Okay, Chris Pratt from Jurassic Park fame. He plays a detective accused of murdering his wife, right? So he's got to prove his innocence to an advanced AI judge within 90 minutes or otherwise face execution. So they got AI in movies already in terms of involving them. So, yeah, and so he's got 90 minutes to prove his innocence. And then Apple TV Plus, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I don't want to stop you.
No, lastly, Apple TV Plus, Shrinking is coming back. 3rd season. I watched both seasons. Harrison Ford and your boy Jason Segel, they both are therapists, but I guess Jason Segel is like mourning the death of his wife. They got clients of their own, but it's awesome. Harrison Ford is genius in it. Jason Segel is good in it. It's a feel-good kind of a show. Both seasons were successful. Season 3 starting Wednesday, January the 28th.
You know, I watched that. Yeah, I watched that first season or much of the first season. I liked it, and then for some reason I stopped watching it. You know what I just finished? Watching, or rewatching, or binging, and it was a really interesting for lots of reasons. And it was Mad Men. I rewatched. And I just finished Mad Men. Might have been sometime this week or last week, whatever it was. John Hamm, yeah, and a whole bunch of others that you sort of know. But what was interesting about it was it came out, I don't know when, time flies now, but I don't know. But when I watched it the first time when it was on TV, you watch the first episode, and then, 7 years later, you're watching the end of it. So you sort of forget what happens in the first season. But when you binge it through in a 2 or 3 week period, you sort of, right, instead of being a 7-season show, it's a 52-hour movie, in a sense, that you just watch throughout 3 weeks. But here's the other thing that was interesting. What's that?
What streaming site does Mad Men? Where's Mad Men?
I think it was HBO. But what was interesting about it was that it wasn't a streaming binge show that they make now. It was a TV episodic show they made then. And so there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. The episodes sort of made sense. There was
commercials too. And they had and so there was something, I don't know, it was something that was really very good. They had the story of the episode and then the overarching story that sort of continued on. The 1960s is definitely a major character in it. The clothes, the people, they're having a dinner party and the neighbor's pregnant and she's smoking a cigarette, having a drink, and they're leaving and they say, "Oh, one more for the road." Okay. I mean, they're all drinking like fish. They're all smoking like chimneys. Yeah, no, it was these corporate execs fly to New York and they're all cheating on their wives. I mean, it's unbelievable. I have to give that a rewatch. I only watch it sporadically.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And John Hamm is he's a tortured soul. Yeah, he's a tortured soul. That guy, the character, Don Draper. It's great. It's a really good series. Anyway,
they're marketing advertising execs, right?
Yeah. Right. And then but they have real products. So they have they're pitching Hershey's chocolate. They're pitching Chevy and Buick and Coca-Cola and there's like real products that they're pitching to these executives. It's fantastic. So if you're looking for something to binge on a cold and wintry weekend, Mad Men's not a bad idea. Yeah. All right, good. Yeah. All right, Theo Lewis Clark, thanks for checking in. As always, you're up. You have a 2-game winning streak, so we got to come back.
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row. All right, thank you, sir. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yeah. Theo Lewis Clark here every Friday. Hollywood exec for a day. Richard, that's embarrassing. Alex, come on, man. You guys should do better than that.
We got him.
We've struck out now twice in a row. From the text line, from the America at Night text line, good evening, McGraw. Your program is a breath of fresh air when everybody else's program all sounds alike. That is from the 316 in Kansas. Thank you very much. How much fun is it to do a show that's saying the same exact thing everybody else is saying? So we've from the very beginning, we always wanted to do a different type of show, a show that's still newsworthy. But yet is, says something different. Just says, who wants to go and watch the same movie over and over again? Here's another one here. Let's see this. This is from Chicago, the 312. Allowing more and more addictive activities, formerly known as vices, in order to stimulate the economy and raise tax revenue is not going to work out too well. Stevie Wonder could have seen this coming. Opportunities for greed corrupts minds, causing morals, ethics, and respect for laws and guidelines to go straight out the window. Boy, ain't that the truth, right? There is a... there is... remember the old family values line? I wonder where that family values line went. Here's another one from... this one's from South Dakota. This is 605. I just want to say that I enjoy listening to your talk radio show on America at Night. You talk about some very interesting subjects along with current news and events. I listen on KORN AM 1490 in Mitchell, South Dakota, USA, home of the world's only corn palace. Thanks, Kendall. Hey, we were talking about the corn palace last night. Kendall, you betcha. Thanks for chiming in from the corn palace. We're going to do open phones next hour and more text lines, so we'll come back in a moment. Stay right there. America at Night.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
I got to tell you, being how old am I? 58 years old, living through a number one of these snowstorms throughout the years. I can't remember this big of a national snowstorm. I lived in New York, and you got snowstorms, and in New England, you got snowstorms. I went to school in the Midwest. We had some nice snowstorms along the way. Had some rogue snowstorms that came either late or early in the season. But this one, I can't remember the last time it's been this, from Albuquerque all the way to Maine. And this swath of snow, anywhere from, Memphis, Tennessee, all the way up to, say, Kansas City. And this just sort of diagonal line from Albuquerque all the way up to Maine, where you're going to get everywhere from 6 to 8 inches in the south to 6 to 8 inches in the north of this thing, and 8 to 12 inches right in the middle, with some of them being possibly up to 18 inches of snow in some parts. They're calling for Louisville, Lexington, Kentucky. They're talking 12 to 18 inches of snow. Evansville, Indiana, 12 to 18 inches of snow. Springfield, Missouri, 18 inches of snow. Joplin, Bartlesville, Oklahoma, 12 inches. Enid, Oklahoma, 18 inches of snow. Holy mackerel. That's just all the way up. This one is one for the books. Not to mention, it's going to be that snow where it's so cold, it's not going to be heavy. It's going to be that light, airy snow. And because there's going to be no moisture in the snow, we're going to get more snow, right? That's why it's going to be 18 inches. It's because there's not enough moisture in the snow, right? So it's not. If it were warmer, right? This is weird. If it were warmer, if it was like 25, 30 degrees and we got the snow, we wouldn't have 18 inches because the snow would have more moisture to it. But because it's so cold, it's going to be light and fluffy. So even if you plow it or you shovel it, it's going to just blow right back in your face or blow right back on the street. And then when you drive over it, right, it's going to compact kind of, but it's going to melt with the ice or with the salt, and then it's going to freeze over. So it's going to have all sorts of ice problems. This thing is going to be bad news. So hang tight. Listen to the radio. Enjoy the conversation. That's what we're going to do. And we thank you for checking in and tuning in. Hey, next hour it's going to be open phones where we have a conversation about anything your little heart desires. We can talk movies. We can talk news if you want to. We can talk, we can talk sports. Nothing wrong with talking a little baseball. Nothing wrong with talking a little NFL. Big games of this weekend. I got to tell you, in terms of my agenda, people want to know what I think. You want to know where I stand. Here's my agenda. I really don't want to see a Patriots Rams Super Bowl. If it's a Patriot Rams Super Bowl, I wish you well, but I'm gonna go to a movie. I have no desire to Rams Patriots Super Bowl. No, sorry. Seahawks and the Seahawks and the Browns or the Bears, right? I'd like to see I'd love to see a Seahawks Bears Super Bowl. I think that'd be kind of fun. No, did the Bears? No, the Bears lost. Who were the Broncos? Sorry, the Broncos. Yeah, I'd see a Broncos Seattle Super Bowl. That'd be all right. I wouldn't mind that. But Rams, Patriots, God love you people if you're super fans. But being a long-suffering Jets fan, I just can't take the success of another Boston team. I like Boston when they were the lovable losers. Now that they're winning all the time, they're not as enjoyable. All right, stay right there. We'll take some open phones next hour, whatever you want to talk about. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Text your comments, pithy and otherwise. Start lining up on the phones. That's all coming up. Alex Hinton is our executive director. Richard Good is our engineer tonight. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Friday night, late night, Friday night, where there is a storm brewing. So check in. Let us know where you are and what's the weather like. Nothing like having a firsthand account from across the country. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Of course, that is also the text line. So you can call us and wait on the line and check in with us, which I love doing. And if you want to go rogue and talk about something that you want to talk about that hasn't been brought up on the show, that's okay. That's half the fun of the show. And then, of course, you can text your pithy and interesting comments to 844-262-4729. So call or text, and we will work it into the conversation. Here's a story for you. A Japanese company famous for making fancy toilets with bidets and heated seats is now riding the artificial intelligence wave. It's not making smart toilets, according to Morning Brew. The company's called Toto. Their stock surged 11% yesterday after Goldman Sachs said that it is positioned to grow the profits from its side gig of producing a key ingredient in semiconductor manufacturing. So apparently they make toilets with bidets and semiconductor manufacturing. How's that for a company? Toto's non-toilet manufacturing accounted for 42% of its operating income during last year's fiscal year. Goldman Sachs expects its E-Chunk Hall to keep growing amid the AI data center frenzy that's squeezing the supply of chip-making equipment. I'm telling you what, this data center story ain't going away anytime soon. There are so many people who are not happy about the prospect or the idea or the concept or let's have a meeting and talk about a data center. It is, I truly believe it is going to rear its ugly head between now and Election Day. Americans don't want it. But you need data centers to produce the chips that everybody wants for artificial intelligence. And so this is this is right under the surface. It's going to bubble up at some point. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The text line's open. Let's go to the phones. We got Paul in Boise. Paul, thanks for holding on. Welcome to America at Night.
Sure thing. A couple of things real quick. One is you mentioned Oppenheimer was the movie that the gentleman was talking about.
Yeah.
They did one Oppenheimer about 1978, and it was a young Sam Waterston. He did a great job. I think you'd enjoy that one even a little more. It was put on by PBS, is what it was put on by.
Was it a documentary or was it a docudrama or was it an actual movie?
No, it was like it was a movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just really well done. I was thinking about letting you know about that one. I don't know if you could rent it or how you could get it on YouTube or whatever.
Well, actually, I just pulled it up here. It was a series. They have a couple of episodes. So it was Oppenheimer, the TV series, and young Sam Waterston. You're right. Before he was McCoy on Law and Order, a young Sam Waterston.
That was 40 some odd years ago. That's probably why I couldn't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 1980 was the TV miniseries. Yeah. Interesting. Yep. All right. I'll check it out. What else you got?
The other thing was the buffoonery of the garbanzo brains that decided to crash the church service the other day. They need a lesson in history before they take a licking and keep on ticking.
I got to tell you, Paul, it's interesting to watch that. We lived this through the riots in Ferguson, right? We've seen the riots in other places. And Gandhi and MLK had it right? The peaceful protest is way more effective than the, I don't want to call them violent, but the sort of in your face. When you go into a church to protest, to get in people's faces, even though your cause may be just, you're doing your cause a disservice.
nullifies it. Basically,
there's no question. There is no question when you see the videos of those poor African Americans who were just trying to sit in the lunch counter and being just blown away by a fire hose, right? That's powerful. That's powerful, and that moved mountains. But to see the video of people crashing a church and sort of disrupting a church service, they're not doing their cause any good. And even people who even people who sympathize with these protesters and don't like ICE doing what they're doing, by those protesters crossing that line, they're hurting their own cause.
Yeah. 100%. I'll go along with that.
All
anyway,
right.
Another stellar show. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the phone call. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Catherine in Vancouver. Catherine, welcome to America at Night.
McGraw, we're having really weird weather here. Like the mildest winter I have ever, and I've lived here my whole life, and this is the first winter that's been this mild. And 2 weeks ago, and then the week after that, I have been noticing flocks of brown birds coming over, landing in our trees in the yard, and there are a lot of birds. And they chatter so loud, you can't miss them. And then I heard on the radio that these birds are from Russia. And because it's been so mild here, I mean, it was 15 degrees a couple of weeks ago, and today was 9. And I'm going, this is crazy. So they were saying that these birds will land because it's so mild here. But they usually go straight from Russia to China. I don't know if you have experienced anything because of the weather changes there, the difference in the animals that come around or birds or I just wondered if weather changes out there.
Now, when just so we're clear, Catherine, when you say it's 15 degrees, you mean Celsius, right?
Right.
Yeah, which is what is that? 61, 62, what is it? Low 60s. So 15 degrees Celsius is, let's say it's 60 degrees. Which is very mild for Vancouver at this time of year, is what you're saying.
It's the first year I've ever experienced it this mild.
Well, I mean, we know that birds can fly great distances, right? The monarch butterfly flies, thousands of miles, so it's not weird that a bird would fly in from Russia, right? I mean, people are thinking Russia. What are you talking about? Well, I mean, they could they could fly over to Alaska. In the Bering Sea or whatever, right? Fly, because I mean, you can see Russia from Sarah Palin's front yard, and then you just.
They were saying they've never been here. This is the first year they've ever.
No. But if it's so mild, and the birds migrate because they think it's warmer, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, I know. Yeah, I have not. We had an awful. Warm fall. It was really warm, like October, November, and then it got cold, and then we've had a couple of storms along the way, and then of course we're going to get hit with this big one today. I haven't heard that, but I've been to Vancouver. It's a beautiful, it's a beautiful town. I loved all those thatched roofs in Vancouver, right? Drove down those streets, and then I was in. You're not too far from Banff, right? How far are you from Banff?
Oh, I'm very far from there.
Well, isn't Banff?
What else is close here? Fort Langley. A lot of people go to Fort Langley too.
Yeah,
through
but
here.
I mean, isn't Banff in the western side of Canada?
I think that's Alberta.
Okay. Yeah. Banff is beautiful. Holy mackerel! I've been to Banff.
Yeah.
That is, Banff is beautiful. All right. Hey, Catherine, thanks for checking in. Have a good night. Watch those birds.
Thanks.
You got it. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729, 1-844-262-4729. A couple of texts are coming in. We'd love to hear from you on the text line. on the phone line. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Let's go to the text line. Text your comments to 84126. Here's one from the 314 in Missouri. Was the church protest violent? I don't believe it was quote unquote violent, though. What's your definition of violent? But it was disruptive, and it was in a church. Let's play the opposite game on this one, okay? Let's say it was a very, very liberal church. Let's say it was a Unitarian church or a Episcopal church, a very, very liberal church where maybe a lot of protesters would have taken refuge and had their moment with God in a church. And during this church service, a bunch of protesters were to come into this church who were pro-law enforcement and pro-ICE and started chanting pro-ICE slogans and yelling at these churchgoers who were in church on a Sunday, right? We would be mortified. We'd be like, I can't believe these pro-ICE protesters are defiling the sanctity of a church and coming in here and telling me what I can and can't do in my own church, right? It would be outrageous. Well, that's exactly what these anti-ICE protesters did. They went into a church, and apparently they didn't like the pastor for his political views or what he did when he wasn't a pastor or whatever. And so they just decided that it was okay for them to burst into a church and to disrupt a church service. I'm sorry. I don't care what your opinion is of that. I don't care what you're trying to prove. I don't care how righteous your movement is. That's wrong. I'm sure it's against the law, but it's against common decency. And I stand by what I said, that if you do that, you turn a number of people off who would otherwise be in favor of your point of view because you did that. That's just not appropriate. And if somebody did it to you, you would be outraged. But it's okay for them to do it to somebody else? I'm sorry. It's just wrong. I get it. You didn't like the pastor. You didn't like the people in the church. You disagreed with them. You wanted to protest, and you wanted your voice to be heard. But you know what? Your right stops at their pew, right? They're allowed to go into a church. They're not bothering anybody. They're having a church service. So I stand by what I said. So the church, it wasn't violent per se, but it was inappropriate. It was wrong. Somebody from the text line. The pastor of the church works for ICE. Okay, so what? So what? At that point, he was being a pastor. He wasn't arresting anybody. He wasn't in somebody's face. He was being a pastor. So what? Just because he works for ICE, you have a right to sort of interrupt his church service? See, that's where the protesters lose me. Whether you agree with them or not, that's whether you're sympathetic to their cause. When you do that, you do a disservice to your cause. That's the point I'm trying to make. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Here's another texter. A YouTuber I once watched said that they had a 10-year gambling addiction that resulted in eventual bankruptcy, discharging numerous debts in the low six figures. She wound up in low-income housing, on Medicaid, and food stamps after living in her vehicle. Addiction runs in her family, and unfortunate personal circumstances converged to create a very messy situation. Look, we had this author on, Danny Funt, wrote a book about the sports gambling and what's going on in the first hour. If you missed it, it was pretty good. And I think that I've known people who have had alcohol addictions. I've known people who have had drug addictions. I've known people who have gambling addictions. And you think to yourself, how do you get addicted to gambling? That's a real deal. And it's insidious because you can hide it so much better than a gambling addiction or an alcohol addiction. Horror stories about gamblers. And I was recently speaking to somebody who was addicted to gambling. They had a master's degree. They had a well-paying job. They had a happy home life. And they started gambling with a slot machine. And the rabbit hole they went down and the stories they told were heartbreaking. And I asked her about the money, right? I mean, what's the end game, right? Well, once you win, right, then you go home and you have all this extra money. No. When you win, in the gambler's mind, all you think about is, great, I won. All that means is that I can stay longer at the casino. Right? So it's like playing Star Wars and getting 4 or 5 extra men. Oh, yes, I can get a higher score because now I have more men. That's what the money is. The money is just, you're not taking it home and paying the rent with it. You're just being able to stay at the casino longer. And that's what's so insidious. You're not even, everyone plays the lottery because, please God, you win and you get your $1 billion and then I'm on easy street. No, you win at gambling. Great. That just means I can stay at the casino longer. And that's what's so insidious about it. And it's preying on children. And children's minds aren't, adults' minds aren't ready to handle the addiction of the phone and gambling. How is a 16-year-old's mind going to handle it? We're headed down a nasty, nasty road with all this stuff. Text your comments to 1-844-262-4729, 1-844-2McGraw, or how about a phone call? We got a couple of lining up now. Lance, hold on. We'll get to you on the other side of the break, plus a couple lines open for you right now. Open phones on a Friday night. America at Night, back in a moment.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. What's on your mind? Call 844-2McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Phone calls or text lines. The text lines are coming in. Got to give you a shout out. The good texts this week, so we appreciate it. We're just getting that going. Don't be afraid to text, and don't be afraid to call 1-844-2McGraw or 1-844-262-4729. Back to phones we go. Lance in Galloway, New Jersey. Hello.
Welcome aboard. I'm on the WOND radio AM 1400. Okay.
Well, yeah. Thank you for calling. Yeah.
That's my conduit.
Okay.
I was calling in regards to the last caller and how you responded. And you thought, like, just because the pastor works for ICE, he was doing his job, his advocation as compared to a vocation within a house of worship. Now, to me, you're right. It's like the protesters against the parishioners. Well, it's like the Republicans versus the Democrats. It's like, what did everybody just forget what right is and what wrong is, or what civility is? I just have a suggestion, and I'd like your opinion. If they want to tone down the volume and the rhetoric, if they would, the governor and the mayors of the various cities, of any city where ICE is coming, they tell you they're coming, if they would just maybe deploy a percentage of their police staff, okay, and let the federal government, pick up the overtime, then the police could act as ambassadors and diplomats and escort them around because they already have the written warrants and affidavits, and they're looking for information that's readily available if they get it through a fraud case or they're pursuing a criminal. They're not just, the painting with the broad brush and saying it's just colors or colored people or migrants or whatever, it doesn't really cut to the chase with me.
Well,
if we're a country of laws, then let's respect and follow the law. That's all.
I don't think anybody, Lance, has a problem with getting the bad guys off the streets. Right? I don't think, and if you do, that's not a right. No one's running to a microphone saying, "Oh my goodness, this person robbed my grandmother. They need to stay in the country." Right? Nobody's doing that. We can all agree. There's general consensus, but a lot of times ICE isn't necessarily doing that. Right? They're picking up not the worst of the worst and not the bad guys, but they're picking up people who are otherwise law-abiding citizens. You're hearing stories of citizens getting caught up in some of these things, and this with
so
this child. Go ahead.
So why not take 10% or 15% of your overtime hours of the local police department and allow them to go and just shadow the ICE people? They're not going to interfere.
Well, but hold on a second. Hold your horses for a second. Minneapolis is very low on police officers. Minneapolis is very low on police officers. And
who voted that in? The people in Minnesota.
No. I don't think it's there's just not enough police officers. They don't have enough people signing up to be police officers. It's happening a lot.
After 4 years of hearing defund the police, now they want to take it to the federal level.
I'm not arguing. Look, but regardless of why, you're the mayor of a town, and you have 4 years ago you had 900 police officers. Now you have 500 police officers, and the police officers are hired to make sure that my street is safe. No one's robbing my bank. No one's robbing my store. No one's stealing my car. My grandmother's purse was stolen. Right? Well, the police are overworked enough. Now you want to take my police department that I pay for and send them off to do the federal work?
No. You missed that. I said, have the federal government pay the overtime to the police officers willing to do it or go do it.
Well, that's a federal thing. I haven't heard the feds offering to pay for overtime or anything. Meanwhile, you're still taking my police officers who are hired to protect me, and you want them to.
They're not usurping them. They're saying, can we have the police officers, if they're a percentage, we will pay their salaries and overtime, and they can help us do this. Now, if they're only going to be there, that would expedite ICE doing what they want to do and getting out.
Lance, the truth is that ICE could do exactly what they're doing and pick up all the bad guys with less vitriol and less angst and less bravado and do it much safer. But they're choosing to be in your face and much more vitriol than they need to be, making everybody less safe.
Well, if you keep a person poking you in the eye or bullying you, and you're doing it either through a bullhorn or through the media or like the governor or the mayors, and they just keep saying, we're going to stick by this. I mean, all of them, both sides are guilty in this.
I agree with that. Lance,
compromise.
Lance, thank you for the phone call. I agree with you. Lance, I agree with you. There is enough guilt to go around on both sides. That we can agree on. Scott in St. Louis, thanks for holding on, and welcome to America at Night.
Yeah, I think that the protesters they were also church worshipers. They were in that church worshiping their way, as opposed they were following what the scripture says, which it says, do not oppress aliens because you were once slaves in Egypt. Okay? And Jesus said, of all the lepers in Israel, Elisha was sent to Naaman the Syrian to heal him.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold. I don't care. You go into a church and you disrupt somebody else's church service because you're protesting something they're doing on the outside is inappropriate. You are doing a disservice to your cause.
The church it invites people to come in and worship. That's what those protesters are doing.
No. They were not. Nobody
worship.
Nobody worships by screaming and yelling and ranting at other people while you're in church. That's not worshiping.
Well, they shouldn't scream and yell, but they were making a point.
We agree. They were wrong.
Yeah, they shouldn't scream and yell. Okay, I don't know if that's what they were doing.
Well, that's what they were doing.
I looked at the video. I didn't see any violence.
They went in there and disrupted the service.
They disrupted it, but they were worshiping. God called them in there.
You know what, Scott?
Because of the way Trump is treating human beings, immigrants.
Scott, we can agree to disagree. You can protest.
Look at the nativity scene. Jesus was an immigrant.
Scott, thank you for the phone call. Calm down. They're doing, in my humble opinion, we can disagree. In my humble opinion, those protesters who went into that church did a disservice to their cause because they took their cause, which many people agree with, and they distorted it because they went over the line and went into somebody's church and caused a scene. They did a disservice to their own cause. That's my opinion. Sorry if you did disagree. Herman in Bethlehem, New York, welcome to America at Night.
Hello there. I'm a farmer in St. Louis, and I was baptized at St. Francis Xavier in St. Louis. I went to Sumner High School. I went to school with Arthur Ashe and with Lou Brock.
Okay.
First of all, those who forget history is doomed to repeat it. Now let's look at 5 incidents. Moses, the Egyptians. Boulder, Colorado, the Egyptians. That's 1. 2, Woodrow Wilson, Joe Biden. Both of their mates had a hand in their government. 3, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy. Both were assassinated. Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump. Attempted assassination. 5, Sodom, Gomorrah, socialism, communism equals the Democratic Party.
All right.
Now, if you look at that, sit down and look at those philosophies, okay, and they all match the Democratic Party.
Okay.
The Democratic Party is socialism and communism, Sodom and Gomorrah wrapped up into one.
Herman, I thank you for the phone call. I got to move on. Tony in Montreal. Tony, welcome to America at Night.
Wow, man, I see there's a definite dichotomy in your country, and I don't think the twains will ever meet. But I gotta say one thing, all you got to do is look at the black and white law. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I've been listening. So U.S. Code 8.1 or 8-111 says you cannot interfere with a peace officer. We call them peace officers in Canada. We don't call them police officers. It's a peace officer. You can't go into a church and you cannot do the damage that those protesters do. You and I agree on that. You cannot go into a synagogue and do harm to people inside, yell, scream, disrupt. You cannot do that. The FACE Act says that. It's also protecting abortion clinics. If you want to protest abortion clinics, stay outside. You got to stay a certain distance. That's the way it works. It's a question of civility. It's a question of being appropriate. In terms of what a peace officer can do, I heard your comments about the different types of bravado. Why don't we do this, McGraw? Why doesn't the Minnesota prison system give up the 170, I believe it's 170 known rapists and criminals that are either criminalized by U.S. law or they have done this in U.S. territory? Give them up. Give them up. They're in prison. They're being held. Just give them up. That way, you don't have any bravado. You just have the ICE police come, get them, and nobody knows about it, and bye-bye. If you break a law and you were a child molester in Canada and you're in our country, you get deported right away. If you do that in the United States, you should be deported. There should be no argument. Could
you imagine if ICE officers went into a church during a service and took a undocumented worker out? Can you imagine? And it caused a scene.
That would be inappropriate.
Could you imagine the outcry, right? And justifiably so, probably, right? And so these protesters went in there and disrupted a church service, and all of a sudden they're somehow trying to justify. No, we have to do this because they're doing these terrible things. No, you don't. You're doing your own cause a disservice by going into a church and disrupting a service because you don't like who the pastor is.
Why don't you ask a question to these people, okay? This white church, and I heard this from a black individual that posted on X. He said if they had gone into a black person's church, a black church, they wouldn't have walked out. They would never have got to the point where they were molesting the pastor. That would never have happened. And I don't want to advocate white or black. I don't care about that. But bottom line is you can't go into a church. You can't go into a school. You can't go into certain territories. But the thing is, McGraw, you and I agree on one thing. Civility must persist all the time. And, if you're going to talk to a police officer, spit on him, throw ice balls at him, snowballs, block him, run him down, do stupid things, you're asking for trouble. My children are told when a police officer stops you, better listen to every bloody thing he says.
Certainly understandable. But ICE is trying to be in your face, right? They can do these things with a lot less vitriol, and they can do these things with a lot less violence and a lot less bravado and make everybody safer and still do what they need to do to take these people. I disagree on that. Yes, no. There's no question. Look, they do it all the time. They do it all the time. They take people. They have raids.
Can I give you an example?
I gotta go real quick,
okay,
Tony. 30 seconds.
Quick. Listen,
real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick. If I go to a hockey game and I start in St. Louis and I start going to the opposing bench and I start throwing things and wrecking the bench and throwing garbage, hot dogs and everything, what happens? The security comes and takes you away. Bottom line, that's the way it is. I don't think it's bravado when you enforce the law. That's it.
No, I don't disagree either. But as a police officer, as right, there are certain things you have to do as a police officer that you and I, somebody punches us in the face, we retaliate. But as a police officer, you're not supposed to, right? You're not supposed to. You're just not.
The police officer is subject to the same rules of criminal law as you and me. Just by the way, when I call you back next week, I want to talk about Lindsay, Ontario, where a homeowner was charged with assault, where a guy came into his home with a crossbow. And in Florida today, a man defended his wife who was being abducted. And the Manatee Police Sheriff said the firing and shooting and killing of that guy was justified. Our two countries are very different in terms of what a person here living in a home.
Tony,
I want to talk about that next time.
Tony, next week, call up and talk about something that has nothing to do with violence. Talk about.
It's just all over the place today.
I understand it. Well, ridiculous. It's all over the place because you look for it. There are all sorts of other things that are out there that are nicer to talk about. Call up and don't talk about hockey. No disrespect, and bring up a nice topic. Bring up a funny topic, a silly topic.
I'd rather you ask me the questions like you did last time. That was good.
All right, Tony. Have a good week. Thanks for checking in. Be safe. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
The last 3 hours go? Where'd the last week go? Where'd the night go? Where'd the week go? Holy mackerel. That's going to do it for us. Hey, special thanks to Danny Funt, who joined us. He wrote that book, Everybody Loses, The Tumultuous Rise of American Sports Gambling. It's a pretty good read. If you missed it, you can go back to the podcast and check it out where all fine podcasts are heard. Matt Wolfe, CBS News, broke down the Oscar nominations, and Theo Lewis Clark joined us for Hollywood Exec for a Day. Don't forget, the podcast lives where all fine podcasts, Spotify, Apple, you name it. Also, AmericaAtNightLive.com, plus our YouTube channel, and it's out there. So if you missed any of it, make sure you download it. We thank you for listening. We thank you for calling. We thank you for the text line. We thank you for supporting our sponsors. We love what we do, and we thank you every single night, and we do not take it for granted. So thank you for everything. Our executive director tonight and this week has been Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night. Stay warm, everybody, on Westwood One.